Minions, unite in space. Today at the Proving Grounds, we're going straight to the moon. Bear in mind Munchausen style, right? So make sure you get those balloons on white. I don't want to end up falling in one of those cradles. If you get that reference, you get gold star. But anyway, today we are talking about the other part of Citizens Unite, Citizens of Space. Again, similar to the Citizens of Earth, I am going to be trying to mainly talk about the base game and leave the unique Unite portion as its own thing. So, Citizens of Space. Being a sequel to Earth, taking place in the future, space travel has become more abundant, aliens and the Space Federation are a thing. You play as the Ambassador of Earth, now joining the Space Federation, allowing Earth to step up in the universe. And you get to meet many of the citizens of space, as the title is, of course. Now, Citizens of Space does a number of things forward and a few things back, in my opinion, when it comes to evolving from Citizens of Earth. The big thing is the game takes a much more Paper Mario turn when it comes to its combat, with quite a few changes to how the citizens are too. Well, in Earth, all citizens were combatants, and Citizens of Space, there are a number of differences. You do have battle combatants still with your citizens. On top of that, the Ambassador plays a support role, and we'll get more into that. You have partner citizens who are equipable to battle citizens, giving them a few extra moves that they can use from that assistant, along with getting perks that assistant do. Like, say, one assistant might give higher intelligence or more defense, or may hurt your defense some for some out-of-control strength. Can vary a bit. And then the other type of citizen you'll also find are summon citizens, which is something the Ambassador gets to use. These citizens offer support, healing, attacks, massive damage to a single, multiples, and it can be varied. On top of that, just like in Earth, all citizens have talents which vary greatly from citizens from minor things like messing with the music, to seeing enemy types, to more useful things affecting actual combat, encounter weight, maybe even affecting other elements, But they're all over the place, just like in Citizens of Earth. Some are more useful than others when it comes to their talents. But battle citizens have sought a pretty big change too. So you still have a 3-person main party team like Citizens of Earth. What is different, however, is citizens can swap, or when a citizen dies, the next one in the row comes out. So you have 3 rows, and the ones all in the back row are swappable with that one in the front row of that row. So if you have, say, the captain next after the chef, and the chef dies, the captain will automatically take his spot, or during the chef's turn, you can swap him out with one of the characters in his row if, for some reason, you feel you need some different abilities, arsenal, buffs, healing, depending on your situation. So essentially you want to get as many cabans because they're more useful, because even if a caban dies, as long as you have more cabans, you can fill up and cover up that loss. So in tougher fights, well, essentially all your cabans are a part of the fight, really. But admittedly, though, there weren't too many times where all my cabans were a, how should I say, felt like a necessary need. For the most part, I was able to use quite a few of the same old characters, but I did make use of probably at least about half the overall citizens in the game. Now, as I said, the game's combat took a very Paper Mario aesthetic. Well, Earth was very Earthbound in its presentation. You're going to be using a lot of button inputs, analog movements, Simon Says, and weird little mini games to pull off abilities, special effects, and doing extra damage. Not too hard stuff, pretty simple things, but few things are weirder than others depending on the characters. And plus, a few characters have their unique, how should I say, quirks to them. Like the chef is an excellent example. Well, each normal cabans have 4 different tiers of abilities, and each of those tiers have a set amount of abilities under them. But there are a few oddities like the chef, who instead of having that, has a spiderweb tree kind of system. Well, depending on what move he used previous, or what moves become available in his next turn, and they keep changing, so you have to kind of learn what moves to pick. But overall, that's in the minority of battle cabans. Mainly, they all follow having a set of abilities in each category. The energy system continues from Earth, while characters have neutral energy consumption and energy giving moves, and just like on Earth, many of the different characters vary on their energy consumption. Some characters more forgiving, while others are more consuming, and others are more supportive in giving energy around. So again, it allows you some customization in your battle lineup, and since you can swap in and out combatants, that also offers a little more strategy. But of course, with not all the characters being cabans this time, you do have a small pool of characters to mix together. But with partners, you still can mix up and add a little of your own flair to your cabans, since they affect stats and give a few assisting moves that you can also select. So now, the Ambassador, as I said, is a support role. The VP in the original game could do nothing, really. He was just a joke. The Ambassador deals with using items, summoning summons, fleeing, and having his own commands that he can throw out during combat that can affect the flow of combat. All of these moves consume the Ambassador's own energy meter. So, basically, his energy meter goes up as citizens do things, and it goes down as you use the Ambassador's moves. So, much more useful, and plus, I do like the idea that he uses items. I think that was a nice idea there, allowing your citizens to still have their own turn. Now, the Ambassador can take a turn during each citizen's turn, so, like, if it's chef's turn, I can have the Ambassador do something, and then take the chef's turn, and then the next person's turn, I can have the Ambassador do something again, if he has the necessary energy to do something again. So, that's pretty much a lot of the differences in combat. Now, overall, I like a lot of these improvements. I like having a variety of citizens that do different things. I like the Paper Mario-esque. It allows you to be a little more interactive with combat, and plus there's a system to chain battles in a row so you can build up more EXP and rewards and that. Plus later there's a citizen that lets you gamble your rewards to try and get even more rewards if you're feeling lucky. However, the one big flaw that relates to combat, in my opinion, is the fact that they changed it to a random encounter system versus how Earth had it, where you could physically see the enemies on the map. I think it's usually, and this is a preference thing, but I think most people would likely agree that having a random encounter system in a Paper Mario style RPG is kinda eh. Because when you have more control over the flow of going into combat by being able to avoid enemies, the minigame stuff for combat doesn't feel as monotonous. But when it's completely random battle, you'll just keep going into battle, and you'll be doing all of these little mini-games over and over. The grind gets to you more, because the more need to actually participate in the battle, if you get what I mean. Now, you could argue that could have its good and bad. Trying to keep you participating in an RPG's grind fest is a tricky slope and does greatly vary the person to person. Like, when I did way into Historia, that was something I greatly compliment its combat system, encouraging you to kill multiple enemies all together and chain them all together to get bonus EXP to level up faster on that. Some people, that might not be a good enough thing. You don't really get any bonuses aside from doing chain fights in a row. So you don't really have anything encouraging you to perform better during the current round of combat you're doing. So I feel it's more annoying. Luckily, there is a citizen that can affect the encounter weight, but you have to do certain amount of fights plus wanking up that citizen to access the lower, higher tiers of more or less encounter weights. But it's a very early citizen, so it's not as annoying, but you do have to do some combat in each area to change up the encounter weight. It's just more of a nitpick. It's not the end of the world, but it does get bothersome in some of the longer dungeons near the end of the game, where it does get a lot more grindier. It does, but I do feel like the balance in the game is a little bit better than Earth, and it also offers you a little bit more freedom in how to go about what you're doing in the game. And I haven't even gone over the story, actually. I usually start with the story, but I wanted to start with the combative differences of the game, because it is a very radically different RPG style game, which makes it very interesting how they merge these two games in Unite. But again, that's going to be in Unite's separate review. But anyway. So you, as I said, play the Ambassador of Earth, who just joined the Space Affiliation, but upon joining, Earth is missing. It was just there when you woke up, wasn't it? But yes, the Earth goes missing, and the Ambassador and his little assistant have to go find out what happened to it. As you, well, start jolly hopping around space, getting new citizens of human and non-human kind to join you in your search for what happened to Earth. During the progression of the game, you will find bits of Earth and put Earth back together again. And the completion of Earth actually does have a gameplay use, because how much the Earth you restore gives the Ambassador more commands that he can do that affect combat. So there is some encouragement doing that. On top of that, you do need to get certain parts of the planet to continue the storyline, though you do not need the completion of Earth to finish the game, so that's kind of up to you kind of thing. Plus, there are a few locations that are also needed in Unite, just to throw that out there, so there are a few reasons to be looking for these parts of Earth once that portion starts opening up. Now, items in the game still work the same way like they were in Earth. There's a certain carry limit, and it's pretty low, and it's usually around 9. Though I think there are a few items that have a small amount, but there are also a few items that actually break that rule too. There are the Galactico brand items that actually can go over that 9 limit. So I guess they kind of wanted to go a little bit of Dark Souls 2, maybe a little bit. Have your Estus Fasks and have your little Embers. Because they're pretty small and simple healing items, while the coffee and pizzas and spaghetti stuff are more useful. But you can't have as many. I did find more useful items in space over Earth, so I guess that goes to show there was a little bit more use. Now, something I also did like adding is, in Earth, there was technically equipment, but you didn't really buy it. You found it off enemies and presents, or from quest givers and that. There are actual equipment items in space, and I like that. You go buy them, find them, get them reward, make them, you name it. I have it. You have a weapon, a defense, accessory, and then on top of that, you have these extra little ability accessories. I'm not sure what the technical term is for them. Let me let me see. Does it have a technical term? Doesn't really have technical term in the menu. I'll just call them little extra accessories of that. So you have a wing accessory, and then you get these extra little ability accessories, you could say. And a lot of them do different things. I found one that allows you to counter, one that increases accuracy by 10%, get extra energy in that. They add a little extra way to add some customization to your battle citizens. And each character can equip 5 of these extra little accessories too that greatly affect them. I didn't find a whole lot of them, but if you can get a whole bunch of them, you can do a lot of customization on your characters. Overall, though, the gear looks pretty traditionally. Other than that, your accessories and everything have a few unique abilities at times. You know, it might be like this does extra damage, or this might affect your stats in this way, or do things like that. But nothing too crazy. But I do like having an actual gear system in the game. While Earth's, you know, it was just a little extra bonus, but it wasn't like there was so much stuff I never got for many of the characters in Citizens of Earth, so it's kind of I didn't find summons too useful in Citizens of Space, to be honest. Some will kind of hit and miss. But in Citizens Unite, I will be talking about a Pacific summon that I highly recommend you use for the Space Extra Boss. But we'll get into that with Unite's review. Probably my only other big criticism I have on Space outside of the random encounter way, I would have, again, whether liked to have the option to see enemies, is the art style change. I feel like Citizens of Earth had a really nice art style for what it was going with. And I understand the direction they were going with the aesthetic change. You know, it's sci-fi, spacey, and that. Like, I get that, but I don't really like it. I know a number of my viewers who watched when I live streamed these both basically universally agreed both games looked like Flash games when I asked about their opinion on the graphics. I think at least Citizens of Earth has a style it's really going for. And while, like I said, again, I understand the style does have a sci-fi look. And I've admitted in the past before, I'm not a big sci-fi person. Outside of Star Trek, I'm pretty when it comes to sci-fi settings and that. So it doesn't really shock me that I'm not exactly the biggest fan of the aesthetic style. But I do certainly agree that Citizens of Space suffers a much more flashy kind of look to it. But I wouldn't let that discourage you from trying to enjoy the game. It has a lot of the similar humor that Citizens of Earth has, being a bumbling fool. Though I feel like the Ambassador has a lot more heart to his character versus the VP being kind of more ironically stupid, admittedly saying bad things he shouldn't, but still having a decent heart inside him. I feel like the Ambassador has a lot more heart, so some people might find him a lot more likable than the VP as a character, but honestly I liked the VP just because he was funnier in my opinion. Not that the Ambassador is a bad bloke either. He's a pretty funny character in his own right. Sometimes he's actually ironically funny in a way that he sometimes seems like he's self-aware sometimes of how bumblingly foolish he himself is sometimes. Again, I think it's overall a charming entry. But I do have to mention that if you're going on the route of the base game with this, you might want to be a little careful with it. Because when I looked up about... Here's the thing with Citizens of Space. Until Citizens Unite showed up on PlayAsia as a physical version, I didn't even know it existed. Like I said, with Citizens of Earth, I actually kickstarted. Well, I did the Kickstarter, but the Kickstarter failed. But Citizens of Space, I literally never heard of it until Citizens Unite. At first, I thought it was a new game being merged with Citizens of Earth, but I later would learn that Citizens of Space was something that had already came out, and they were adding more content to the two of them as one game. So, Citizens of Space does not have a very good review score on Steam, and when you look at the forum, lots of people have bug problems with it. Now, I don't know if it's still a problem in its current form, because I imagine it had patches and stuff, but apparently it was in really poor performance in the base game when it first came out, at least. So if you are interested in that loot, I would definitely say try to maybe do a little extra research to make sure it's actually in a somewhat more workable state. Because they might have just abandoned it and worked on Citizens Unite's version after that. I don't really know. This is the PS4 version you're seeing, and I do have some negatives in that regard for the console version. The console version, for the Asian version at least. Now, I do want to state that Limited One Games just actually announced a pre-order for 1 month of a ESRB version of Citizens of Unite, and I would imagine, though we don't know for sure, that that will likely have all the patches applied, so that's probably the better route to go if you're interested in this package. But the Asian versions of Citizens Unite has had multiple updates to fix a lot of the performance problems of Citizens of Space. Yes, sadly, on the disc without any patches, there are some problems with Citizens of Space, more so than there was with Earth. Now, the biggest and most notable problem is the fact that there are laggy kind of skips in combat sometimes, which in a Paper Mario aesthetic combat system where, you know, your button presses are going to matter on doing extra damage or having status effects apply to characters, is a little bit of a issue. Now, it wasn't devastating or unplayable, but it definitely can be an issue. Especially, there was one particular boss that the commands were so freaking outrageous, and it was just this one boss. It was way near the end. This one boss had really weird counter-defensive button presses that worked very oddly. I think that they were certainly broken, in my opinion. But luckily, I was able to still kill the boss and move on. And I will likely show a snippet of that in the spoiler section, because like I said, that is a way later boss, so I don't want to get into what that boss is. But something was really weird about the defensive button presses with it. It was just, I don't know, and it was just that one boss that really had that problem. Other than that, there wasn't too many problems. There was a portion on Earth that affected the Bastel sprite. Wasn't game breaking or anything, but was a bit of odd. And I think there were a few other spots where there was weird layering with some environmental pieces that didn't look right, but those will fall in between. But a few minor things I saw there that patches have may fixed by now. I did play through this game unpatched for the sake of seeing how much of a playable state it was, because I feel like that's something important, since, you know, I like to emphasize physical items or that, which is why I wanted to bring up the Limited One pre-order, because again, it should have all the newest patches, but that doesn't always happen all the time. There have been a few Limited One releases that didn't have the newest patches on them, which were weird, but who knows? A bunch of complicated, weird stuff sometimes. Overall, though, Citizens of Space is a pretty decent game, honestly. I enjoyed it. I liked it, and I definitely recommend it if you're into RPGs and you're wanting something more humorous. Again, though, it's not the most balanced game in the universe, but I do feel like it's a wee little bit more balanced than Citizens of Earth, which I really felt like the balance was a lot of places. But again, depending on how you go about the game, you might feature some weird imbalances. Because like I said, in your search for the pieces of Earth, you are given some freedom to go about the different places in space and so on orders. So, but yeah, I recommend it if you want overall a silly, strange little game. It's only just like Earth has its flaws, but I certainly do feel like, at least in Citizens Unite's version of Citizens of Space, that it took some interesting, nice steps forward involving from Citizens of Earth. Again, I would have liked it if you could see the enemies. Like, honestly, that is my biggest problem with the game, because some of the big dungeons and shit, like the random fights, get really monotonous. Especially since I didn't even need the really level grind for a good chunk of the game until I got near the end. And that was more because of the boss in Citizens Unite, not Space's not Space's original boss. Though it was the original final boss in Space is way harder than Citizens of Earth's final boss. That was a joke for me. Oh boy. That was a really disappointing final boss for me in Earth. Space is sadly a lot, how should I say, a lot longer. But we'll get into that with spoilers. So what would I give Citizens of Space for value? Citizens of Space, to me, I feel like is more around the $15 range when we're just talking about the base game. It's still an okay game, even though there are a few things that I'm a little, and there were some problems with the United version, but it was in a playable state. Now, like I said, on Steam, the base game has a lot of mixed reviews about its performance, and I'm not really sure about its console versions. For the base game, it is available on Switch, Xbox, and PlayStation with Steam, with, as far as I can tell, no DRM free options. Though it is important to note, with the Switch version, there is no price available, which means it's not buyable right now. I don't know why. That may be for many different reasons. As I mentioned in Citizens of Earth, that it was available for 3DS with Earth, but it was removed because people found that there was a bug that people could basically get into the DS software, the 3DS's software, and do stuff to the 3DS that Nintendo didn't like, so they just yeeted the game off the eShop. So maybe something similar happened? I don't know, but it's not available, so if that's ever coming back, I don't know. Similar to Citizens of Earth, however, the price for the base game is the same, $14.99 digital. It never got a physical version as a standalone, so again, if you're interested in a physical copy, you will want to either look at the ESRB weighted version that Limited One Games currently has pre-orders for up until, I believe, December 19th, I believe. Let me look here. I believe it was going to be for a month. Yes, up to December 19th. So take considerations that. The Asian version is sold out on PlayAsia the last time I looked, but it is still okay-ishly priced third party on like eBay and stuff. If you're going to go physical with the Unite version, if you want these two games, again, you get these two games, new stuff added to both of them, and the new content that Unite brings. for $39.99 physically, $29.99 digitally on the PS4, Switch, and Steam stores. Now, I did hear of a particular problem also to note with the Switch version of Citizens United's. I did hear of a problem in Citizens of Space in the United version when you get your spaceship citizen that gives you a spaceship. I heard, well, a bigger spaceship, I should say, but I heard somebody actually basically got stuck during that section of the game. Far as I know, that's in the Switch version only. I haven't heard of a case of that happening with the PS4 version. I have tried looking it up, and I could not find a lot of info on this being a common thing. I would hope patches have fixed that, I would hope, but I don't know. Like I said, I have the PS4 version, which I think is probably the better version to recommend, because of some of the performance problems with space specifically. But again, yeah. Now, after I finished the game, I did apply the patch and try out some of it, and it does improve the performance. But sometimes there's still a bit of a spike here and there or that, but it's not solely as bad as it was playing through it without the patches. So, again, the limited one version is likely the best bet to go with it physically, because that's the only way to get these two games physically at this point in time. So, but if you're interested in the base version, like I said, it is available digitally on everything except for the Switch for $14.99. But you might want to take a better look at whether those versions are a little bit better. It could have just been a bad PC version, you know, sometimes that happens a lot of times. So, but again, what I'm playing is in the United version, so try to keep that in mind with that. But I definitely recommend getting the United version. You get 2 games, extra content. It's like perfect in my opinion, but eh. And with that, let us talk about spoilers. Now, I do want to mention that something I gave Citizens of Earth a little credit for was not injecting real politics into the game, really. Making fun of politics, but not really injecting, you know, any, oh, my political thoughts are so much better than yours. And I'm not trying to necessarily say Space did that, but the fact that they injected a character that's pretty clearly making a parody of Donald Trump kind of makes you question if they might be. Admittedly, it goes with the theme of the story of the game, as you find out that the president of Earth sold Earth to a corporation, and that's why they broke up Earth, because they actually wanted the space that Earth was in, not Earth itself, so they just sold other parts of Earth around space to whoever wanted certain parts of it. So the theme of the story is big business, corporations. And admittedly, I can see why you would want to use Donald Trump for that, because, well, Donald Trump is, you know, he's a rich guy in business and has corporate connections and stuff. So I can kind of see the parallels to wanting to use him. Now, admittedly, though, I think the parody was pretty bad, because how do you do, like, just like Obama, how do you do Donald Trump parody without doing the voice? Like, the same thing with Obama. How do you do Obama parody without doing the voice? The voice actor they have doing the President of Earth is pretty bad. So, admittedly, other than making one line where he says, make something great again, I can't remember if make the galaxy great again, I can't remember the exact line, but other than that one line and lots of corporate lingo, the game doesn't really bring up any real parallels outside of corporation-related things. And let's be fair, a lot of corporations have gone way too greedy these days. They do need a few notches down, so I do feel like some people might have a mixed opinion on whether they were trying to make a political statement on real-world politics or not. Because, I mean, I feel like, you know, it's perfectly fair to make fun of any real politician. I'm certainly not saying no politician should not be made fun of, but at the same time, I just, you know, it becomes shakier water these days with how sensitive people are with political jokes and how much some people want to shove down their political opinion. And this is on both sides, not just one side. Both sides do this problem where they shove down their political opinion forcibly and try to make you sound terrible for even slightly disagreeing with it. At the end of the day, I don't really feel like Citizens of Space suffers from that problem. But I could understand why some people would be concerned about it, though. But getting underailed here on the political train here, though, the game, like I said, is strong themes of capitalism and corporations, greed and that, as you put the Earth back together and you challenge Galactico over, well, it's greed and that. And it gets pretty weird, though, because you have to go to the corporate dimension where corporations are born and kick their ass, though, which is fucking weird, but, yeah. Also, something different that Citizens of Space also does that Earth didn't have is it actually has 2 endings, not counting the conclusion of Unite's content. If you get all the citizens, you'll get the good ending. If you get less citizens, you get the bad ending. And the big difference in the endings is whether Galactico gets allowed to be restated business in the galaxy again. If you get the good ending, the ambassadors all torn down, letting it start up again. If you get the bad ending, they just like, yay, and let it start up again. There also is a little bit more extra there with the good ending, but I'll leave that to you to find out on that front. The ending wasn't anything huge, and unlike Citizens of Earth, the game actually throws you back to before the final boss, allowing you, if you got the bad ending, to collect the rest of the citizens to get the good ending, or to just re-experience it again, which I think is a nice little thing for you to do if you want to ever come back. And like some people do that with some of their favorite games, you know, come back and kick the final boss's ass and shit and stuff like that. So a nice little idea there. It could have been nice to add that to Citizens of Earth in the Unite version, but they did not, so but yeah, it's an okay game. More for the ha-has than the challenge, but it was a nice evolution from Earth. I would like to see if they make another Citizens game, which there were several hints at the next game, if it even is being serious, being called Citizens of Time. I would like to see some of the best elements from Earth and Space carry on into the next entry if they were to make another game. Because I do definitely feel like there are quite a nice number of improvements in this. But with that, that's Citizens of Space. Nice fun little lump of political stupidity. And until next time, we'll talk about Unite's added story and what things it brings to the table for both of these games. And until next time, don't go floating out in space. It's pretty dangerous out there. There's weird foot fungus aliens, you know.